All right, let's tab back in here. We're about to do a recording here, and we're going to talk about all this stuff. Welcome back, YouTube. Uh, Today's going to be a very, very long video. I am so faded. Why am I so faded in this video? You know what? Whatever. You can see me. I'm sorry. I'm so see-through. I look like Casper the Ghost right now. Um, but this is going to be a really long video, man. I've been wanting to do this video for a while for you guys, and this video in particular is going to be teaching you how to build from scratch. So disclaimer, if you are someone who is already knowledgeable about builds and knowing how to build, like you kind of have an idea and you understand how everything works, this video may not be for you. This video, I'm making it specifically for people who are new to this kind of game or want to learn the thought process that I go through when I'm making a build for a character. And the reason why I wanted to do this is because, most importantly, like, although there's content creators like myself or other ones that like bigger streamers who have builds for people to borrow or take, the thing that we forget the most is the fact that most of the builds that we have are going to be inaccessible to the general public that just started playing the game, right? So say like someone just started playing and they're all the way back in Kingston and like they bought Ultimate Glay. I can showcase my Ultimate Glay build and be like, oh yeah, for Ultimate Glay, you're gonna want Predator Instincts and all this stuff. But the issue is that they don't have Predator Instincts. They won't be able to get access to those mods until after they beat the game, after they beat hard mode bosses. And how do we expect them to do that if you're already struggling with basic content? So I wanted to make this video to teach you or any new player in general in the future how to make their own build and cater to their own needs so they have an understanding of the game at least a basic level, like a baseline. So when they get stuck, they can kind of figure out what they need help with and like what they need to plug in for their situation. Because everyone individual needs going to be different. Because the main thing people always ask, well, did you put mods on? Are you using mods? Yes, they probably have mods on, but it doesn't mean anything if they don't know anything. So this is going to be a full breakdown, explaining every little component and how everything adds up. So specifically, I decided to go with a character like Sharon. So I feel like Sharon is pretty easy. She's straightforward as a character. So we don't have to worry about any like hidden mechanics or anything like that. I took off all of her components here, so you can see her base values and stuff. The only thing I couldn't take off is the reactor, right? So I can't remove that, and unfortunately I don't have like a level 1 or level 2 reactor, so just ignore the skill power. But we're going to talk. So let's dive in. Hopefully this video helps you. Grab a drink. It's going to be a long one. We're going to be sitting here for a while. The first thing I like to do when I get any kind of new character or anything like that in these kind of games is I love looking at their base stats. So I like to go to the character info and everything like that, and I love just looking at what value's higher. Their shields, their health, their defense, all this stuff. Because this helps me understand what the character scales with more, and I'm going to talk more about that in the future. But essentially, we want to make sure that we buff the things that they're good at and not the things they're bad at. So like max shield, for example, Sharon, I have no modules on my Sharon. She's completely empty. So we go here. I gave us a nice clean slate. I just left shock punch on because this doesn't hurt me. This just gives me more mod capacity, right? So that's all that is. I have no components. So that's how I know for a fact that she has more HP than shield, obviously. So there's nothing here being skewed by like, oh, max HP on my components. So what I want to do is, when I see this, in the back of my mind, I think, okay, so HP, for sure, got it. If I was to put any survivability mod on, I want to put it for her max HP because that's where she gets the most benefit. And then defense, you can look at defense, but okay, if I do defense, that'll also be really good as well. She scales really high with her defense. So maybe a defense module will be good, right? So that's in the back of my mind. I'm not going to look too much at it now, but just keep that in the back of your mind. Max HP or defense is going to be the things that we want to look at and determine where we're going to scale. In this case scenario, I would say defense. So I'm going to back out of here for now, Sharon. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to look for external components. Your components is very important. It doesn't matter which one you got. Understand in early game, you're not going to have crazy amounts. So I'm not going to look for set bonuses. I'm just going to look for just base stats. That's it. We're not worried about sets. I'm sorry that I only have level 100s to showcase to you right now. So just bear with me. So we saw Sharon has a lot of defense, and we saw that she has more HP than shield. So I'm gonna ignore her shield at all costs, and I'm not afraid to buff her defense. I'll buff that up. So what I'll do is I'll look for HP or defense. This one gives me defense and max HP in a substat. I'll get 547 HP, and it'll give me defense and my main stat. Now this is totally up to you, right? Now some people will tell you you ideally want a piece that gives you double of the same stat. So you would want like a defense, and HP. That's a good boost. But unfortunately, maybe you don't have access to that because that requires you to farm. And if you keep watching my videos, I always tell people, don't worry about farming in the early game. Beat the campaign as fast as possible, and then your farm will begin in game, because then you can get the desired roles and stats you want. In normal game, you're just gonna get content, like it's gonna keep dropping you loot that's always gonna be at a higher rarity with higher values at all the time. So you're gonna constantly keep changing things out anyways. So there's no point wasting your time trying to constantly mid-max as much as possible. So just grab whatever one that's good for you. So for this example, I'm just gonna grab this one. I'm not gonna look for like something crazy and concrete. I just want to buff her survivability. I'm gonna grab this one. I'm gonna throw it on. Boom. Now I have more base defense and I have more base HP, which she scaled with. So my HP value is now going to be at 1060, and my defense is now at 5,941. That's huge. Already, I'm kind of tanking for a level 29. Already. Now, granted, I am using the gold. So there's that. Granted, it is a gold. So I'm going to keep going, and I'm going to keep adding more to it. So now I'm going to look for another one. Another defense or HP one, if I have one. So we got to look for these little cylinder things here. So let's see. I see this one's max shield. We showcase that her shield is low, so I'm not going to bother wasting my time on that. So I'm going to look for... here we go. We got a max HP one. And this one has max MP. So this will help her mana pool. So this one I can decide if I want to throw it on. Character XP gain modifier is nice for if I'm, leveling and stuff. So we're just going to go with this one for now, because maybe I want to give her a little boost to her HP. I think we got enough defense. I'll give her a little bit of HP for the early game, so that way she isn't too squishy. So, because another thing to know about defense is that defense only negates up to 80% of an attack. Luckily, in normal mode, enemies aren't going to be doing that much crazy amount of damage to where you have to worry about getting one-shotted, except for like a few bosses, right? So this would be really good for when you're fighting bosses if you really want to stack in like high defense to really negate the amount of damage they do. But for like just regular mobs in the open world and stuff like that, you really don't need a crazy amount of defense early game. But that's just my opinion. If you are still struggling and you still need just add more, right? Add more. There's nothing wrong with it. Just know that it's only going to negate up to 80%. So if an attack is like 100 and it's negating 80 of it, you're going to take 20 damage. You know what I'm saying? So there's that. Okay, going into the health here, we're going to still look for more things. So I'm going to see. So for me, I'm like, okay, I got max HP, I got defense, and some more max HP. My HP is looking kind of good. Do I still want more? Sure, why not? Why not? Why not in this case? Just because we can fill both roles. So I'll be like, all right, this one has HP and defense. Let's do it. We're gonna just throw that on there. We're gonna come to my last and final piece. We're gonna look for another one, and I'm gonna say, okay, this one gives me defense, and this one gives me max HP and some other stuff. Now, if you feel comfortable and you're just looking for something extra minor, you can look at the substats, because you might have some cool substats for one, and that's important. I'll throw this on. Before we continue and I back out of here, I just want to make one important statement. Be careful too, just because like say you get a gold drop or a purple or a blue, don't feel like the need to instantly get rid of it, because sometimes the main stat may be like, oh, it's like minus like 1,000 or 100 or something like that, right? But it turns out the purples actually give you more if you're still struggling with survivability, because it's a double stat. So like this, for example, is 2,341 in a base stat, and then the blue version, or like the substat, is another 2,384. So technically, this is giving me 4,000 defense, and this one, let's say, let's say this was like a defense one. I was like a gold 3,000 defense. Technically, this one would give more, even though the arrow says the arrow would be down, saying it's giving me less because I'm getting 4K off it. You know what I mean? So just be careful of that when you're trying to clear your inventory space and you're trying to make room. Be mindful of that and make sure you carefully look at your substats because you might be making yourself tankier. For a while, before I started getting like constant level 100s that I felt comfortable with, I was running like a level 80 and not using my level 90 because all the level 90s and 100s I got, they were actually weaker than the level 80 purple that I got during one of the missions and during the campaign because it had good double stats and it was like a double roll and it high rolled. So I had really good defense off that one. So I was using it for like the longest time. So just be mindful of that, okay? So now that we got done putting our components on and we got our character with the nice survivability, so we're not getting one tapped by everything, we're going to go to our modules. So just know now our modules are going to affect these numbers. So in here, we got our shock punch on. It doesn't matter which one you want. These little, these mods, I forget what they're called. We're just going to call them like attack mods or whatever. Like those mods, in particular, stance mods, they'll give you more capacity, so they never hurt. So instantly level one up to the max whenever you get the chance to, if you can, and just give yourself more space to play around with on your Descendant. So now that we have that there, we're going to look at our Sharon's ability, because this is very important. We want to see what she works with. So underneath her preview image, we see that she's an electric type, and we see that her A, or her 1, is a fusion-based ability. So I'm going to keep that in mind. So this is a fusion electric-based ability, and then we're going to look at her 2. Her 2 is an electric dimension-based ability, and pretty much all of her abilities is going to be electric. So we're just going to stop repeating that because you get it, right? This one's a dimension-based ability, and then her flash short sword is a fusion-based ability. So how we determine what kind of reactor we're going to throw onto our Sharon is going to be based off of what we just read, right? So we see fusion, we see electric. What kind of play style am I going for this character? Am I going to be using her 1 and her 4 a lot? Because if so, then I'm going to want to prioritize electric and fusion damage, right? As well as an electric fusion reactor. That's how we look at this, because we want to boost those abilities. Now, these abilities, her dimension-based ability, like her shadow ambush and all that stuff, or active ambush, sorry, and her shock nuts, this is up to you. Do you want to actually focus on this? These two are duration-based abilities, because shock nut, the stun lasts as long as you have duration on, and then her active camouflage lasts for as long as your duration is based off of. So you got to keep that in mind when you're building these characters and what modules you want to put on. So right away, for me, for my Sharon build, I'm going to say I want to prioritize her cutoff beam and her short sword, because that's where most of my damage is coming, and I like damage. So what I would do for that, I see it's fusion. You could go to skill power. You could do things like technician. Let me see if I have any fusion mods. Also, in the video, we're only going to use blue modules because I don't want to use the purple ones, because again, this is a beginner guide video, and because it's for beginners, new players will not have access to things like the purple mods. So we're only using blue modules as just an example, right? This isn't to actually create a Sharon build live on screen. So I'll be like, all right, I'm going to grab Fusion Specialist. I'm going to throw this on. I'm going to put it in this slot here because if you didn't know, these symbols you see, when you match them up, they'll actually reduce the cost of a mod, leaving you with more space. So that's very important to know when applying modules and how to correctly apply them so you're not hogging up too much space, and how you make your character feel more powerful. So now we're going to back out. Oops. I didn't save. I'm a silly goober, chat. Forgive me. Don't hate me. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to put this on. I'm going to save that. And now I'm going to go here. I'm going to clear this out. And I'm going to go back and look at those abilities again. I'm going to read the description now. The description of it says, Skill effect, so the cooldown 7 seconds, MP cost 27. Skill effect, damage is the skill power times 802.7%, right? And then the damage range is a 4.4 times 6.0. And then the max expendable range, or expandable range, is 150%. So that in mind, we want to build for range, and we want to build for skill power, right? Because then the electrocution after is the skill power times another 114.7%. And I'll tell you how you can calculate your skill power and what you know where your skill power actually is. So in this example, again, because we're only working with blue mods, I'm going to throw on power increase because I want to increase my skill power. So I'm going to save this. So I got power increase and I got fusion specialist on. Fusion specialist to boost the one again, and to boost my 4, because that's how I'm gonna play my Sharon. And then I got power increase because I want to multiply my skill power. So now you're probably thinking, okay, Render, how do I calculate my skill power? Where is my skill power coming from? Your skill power is coming from your reactor. And again, since you're playing early game, if you're someone who's new and you're starting off, you're not going to worry too much about farming your reactor. And I know you see a toxic reactor on my Sharon, and this is for a good reason. I'm using this as a great example. This was actually for my Freyna. I was using my Freyna build, but I'm using this as a good example of who cares. So as of right now, in normal game, you're going to get reactors that drop at all different levels, and they'll always give you increased stats. So what you're going to do is you're going to just look for the best reactor that gives you a higher skill power. So down bottom where it showcases skill power when equipped, you're going to look for that number, and you just want to equip that. So right here, this electric one that I have, I will put this one on. Obviously, it's going to give me an electric skill power boost ratio, a fusion skill power boost ratio, and all that stuff. But look at the number difference. I'm getting 4,866 increase to her A, and another 4,866 increase to my X, which is my 4th ability, right? And that's the playstyle I'm going for. So because I'm utilizing that playstyle, I would essentially look for any reactor that's going to boost that number, right? Now, this is a Tingler reactor, so I'm going to try to do it different and try to pretend like I'm in your shoes and I don't have a reactor for my character. So here's another good example. This one is a materialized reactor. This does not give me an electric boost, but what it does do is, compared to the reactor I got now, it will boost my A and my 4. So I'm going to look at that, and then I see that it has the skill power boost ratio, or fusion skill power boost ratio, and that's probably also why it's giving me that bigger boost. So I would essentially equip this, and now the skill power of like that 11,060 and all that stuff, or the 11,934, that is the skill power that's being utilized in the equation that we saw in the description, where it was telling us that it was going to be X number, or skill power X this percent. So that's the number that's going in, and that's how we get bigger damage numbers, right? So that's how we're gonna this is how we're gonna buff our descendant to dish out more damage. So we have survivability covered slightly. So now we're gonna go back to my Sharon. We're gonna see what she needs next. So reading the description for active camouflage, this one says active camouflage activates camouflage, which hides self from enemy sight. Attacking an enemy while in this state immediately ends, and activates ambush. Ambush. Outgoing damage is increased by another 100%. So with that being said, I would think to myself, okay, how long do I want to be invisible for to get close enough to an enemy, or maybe use my 4 ability so I get that extra 100% damage increase, right? So I would put duration on if I needed to. So I would look for a duration based mod. So I'm going to type in duration. And I'll be like, okay, skill extension, cool. I have one, awesome. I'm gonna put this blue one on. I'm gonna save. So now I'm thinking to myself, all right, so I got my duration covered. I got my skill power covered because I'm increasing my damage off my reactor. I got my fusion boost added, so I'm doing even more damage with my ability than I'm using. So what's next for my character? I would think, okay, I didn't cover range. Range is what I want covered. Let me put some range on. So I'm gonna type in, so for this one, we're going to type in range, right? Skill expansion. I'm going to put that on. Boom. Skill expansion. So now my bases is covered. I have range, I have damage for my abilities, and I have duration for my abilities. So I already now have set up my playstyle for Sharon. Now I have to think, is there anything else I'm missing? Well, maybe I'm getting one-shotted a lot in the open world, right? Maybe the open world is really beating me up bad, and although I have the damage, I just don't have the survivability. So now we can go back and we can think to add survivability mounts, like, and to multiply the stats from our components to it. So let's look at our defense. We have tons of defense on Sharon. We're at 9,000 defense already, and we're pretending to be at like level 1, right? Or level 29. We'll say I'm in a level 29 area with 9,000 defense. We'll pretend like that's the case, right? So I'm looking at my HP, and I'm like, my defense, even though like I'm negating a lot of enemies' damage, I just don't have enough health to tank it though. Like I'm still taking a lot of damage to my health. But luckily, Sharon scales, her health was higher than her shield gate. So I'm not going to worry about putting more shields on Sharon. I'm going to worry about putting more health on Sharon. Does that make sense? So now I'm going to go to my Descendant modules again, and I'm going to grab the HP module. So I'm going to type in here again. I'm going to say HP. I'm going to put increase HP on. So now my increased HP is on. So now my Sharon's HP now at max is 6,000 HP at level 29. And the module isn't maxed. So I'm still covering my bases. I'm making it to where my character can now survive in a situation while doing the damage that I want. So now we're going to go back again. And I'm still going to just think. I have 43 out of 58 slots to play around with. What else do I want? What else do I need? Do I want to add more defense? I totally could. I could if I want to. Because I have the main things that I cared for covered. I have my skill expansion. I have my skill extension. I have my power increase. I have my fusion specialist. Do I want extra things? Now, if you're in early game, you do get skill insight, but you don't get skill concentration. You could put skill insight on, so that way when you do hit her ability, like her 4 or her A, for me, I would do it. Because I'd be like, okay, I want to make those numbers even higher. I want them to crit, right? I want them to do crit, and I want them to do double the damage. So I would put skill insight on for my playstyle. I would do so. You probably wouldn't, but I would, right? Because that's just me. I have the module, it's blue, and you do get it kind of early in the game. So I would slap it on because I want to make that damage look nice. So I'll slap this on. I still have 7 slots to play with. Well, what else do I want? Now, again, like I said, if you feel like you need more survivability and you're struggling, then you could look at your next best option. You could say, okay, I want to put more defense on. The enemies here are hitting a little bit harder. I want to put more defense on. You could do that. You can find yourself a defense module. So I'll just type in defense. And this is critical hit resistance. Maybe I'll put that on. Maybe I'll put agony on. Well, not agony because we're looking sticking strictly with blue mods. So I'm going to say increase defense. Unfortunately, I don't have enough mods capacity because I have this upgraded and I was trying to like not do it. So we're going to take skill insight off. I'll just trade that off. And I'll put increase defense. Boom. That mod wasn't too important. Skill insight wasn't too crazy important. These modules are important. So again, we want to just give and take and just put what we need. We want to cover our bases. You got your survivability covered. We got our character attack covered, right? So our abilities aren't weak. So now we're going to back out and we're going to apply the same concept to our weapons, right? Because we got our reactor covered, we got our components covered, and now we got our modules covered. So now my Sharon is built. She's how she's supposed to be. She's built. So we're going to go into the weapons, and I'm going to do the same thing with my weapon. I'm going to look at my weapon. I want to see the details on this. I'm going to look at it and be like, okay, firearm critical hit rate. Wow, this is only 13.74%. That's kind of lame, right? All this stuff. I'm going to be like, this is lame. No, I'm joking. But you're going to look at the numbers. You're going to see it's kind of low. And this is where you make the decision for yourself as to whether or not you want to stack a crit mod on it or not to make your weapon do more damage. Now, in the comment section before, someone's like, hey, it doesn't have a lot of crit ratio. Like, I think that's like a dead stat. It's useless. Your characters won't benefit from it. All this stuff. Or the weapon won't benefit from it. And I came to the laboratory to showcase something to people because I want you to take the values that you see with a grain of salt. And this is why you just have to do trial and error and test and see what you think is best for you and what you like. I'm gonna just make the enemies level 100. It doesn't really matter. The enemies are invincible. They're not gonna die. And wait, I want you to be like more grouped up. All right. Anyways, who cares? I have no modules, and I just want you to see how often this crits with such a low crit rate. Look how often that's critting for something that claims to be 12% or 13%, right? Those are very low crit numbers. Or not low crit numbers, but sorry. No modules, nothing. But look how often that's critting. So that's why when people question me and ask me things like, hey man, your crit sucks. Like, why do you keep putting crit on things? I put crit on things for a reason. Now, before you also question me and be like, well, as you can see here, weapon options and all this stuff, blah, blah, blah. Like, I did re-roll my weapon, and I do have firearm critical hit rate of 14.5% on it on base with firearm critical hit damage, because that's what I like. I'm a huge crit freak. I love damage, so I re-rolled my weapon. I do have a video talking about this if you go and watch my other Descendant video in the beginning on my channel. But yeah, so I re-rolled my stats to specifically look for firearm attack, some kind of innate ability. I'm trying to re-roll the electric off for poison. And I just want crit rate and crit damage because that's just more damage in general. And I want my weapon to just always be consistent. And as you can see, with no modules whatsoever. Again, this is blank. 0 modules. Setting 3. It crits like crazy already. So yes, I always value crit. So for me, that's what I'll put on my weapon. But if you are someone that maybe you don't have crit mods, if you don't have crit modules, you're new in early game and you're looking at your weapon stats and you see the value, like the crit value is really low, like I would say under 30%. If it's really low and under 30%, you don't feel comfortable with it, it's not creating a lot, I would look at that as weak point. I'll put weak point mods on. So I'd be like, okay, instantly, the main thing I want is going to be fire rate. Always want fire rate on your weapons, because fire rate, even though it's not an exact increase to damage, it is basically a damage like mod, because you're doing more damage over time much faster, so you're actually increasing your DPS. I don't mean damage over time in the sense that like I'm applying like a damage tick to an enemy. I mean damage over time as in like throughout the duration of the battle, I am constantly emptying my bullets, so I'm getting more damage out, aka damage per second. So it is increasing your DPS, even though it's not actually like increasing the number of the damage that you're doing, right? But you are doing more DPS, essentially. So I'm gonna look for fire rate up. I'm gonna put that on instantly for my modules. Now, another thing you could do is weak point. So weak point also applies to things like critical hits, like headshots and stuff like that. So I would put that on to an enemy because that's technically a weak point, right? And when you get into fighting Colossus, weak points are like when you shoot their arm, like the little yellow plates and stuff like that that you can grapple onto. That is weak point as well. Those are just pretty much anything I would just guarantee you like more critical damage in a number. So I would put weak point sight on. Then I would look for my rifle reinforcement, because this is a blue. This is when you get very early on, and it's very, very, very important. This will actually increase my overall damage number. So I'll throw that on. And then again, if you don't have crit rate, if you don't want to put crit rate on, you don't have to worry about it, right? Who cares? We'll say who cares. So say like a gun, in your opinion, is very hard and difficult for you to use. You're struggling to control the recoil and shoot something straight or whatever like that. The gun feels bouncy, but you like the damage. It's just hard. I'd put vibration absorption on because, hey, I want to improve the quality of life of my gun. My gun hits hard. I just don't like the way my gun shakes all over the place, right? Because this will now reduce the recoil. So this is what I'll do for my thing. So recoil on, and then maybe the reticule is too fat, right? You don't like how far your bullets are spreading out. Then I'd say, okay, I kind of want accuracy. So let me see, which one's accuracy? Hawkeye? I'd probably throw something like this on, because again, maybe your gun is already hitting hard enough at the content that you're playing at, and you don't actually need that extra bit of damage, and you just want to make the gun usable. So this is just me thinking from an early game perspective and thinking on drawbacks that you may be encountering. So with that being said, This isn't like an actual build for the weapon. This is just my thought process when it comes to building and making things suitable for me. Because one thing about these games again is that there is no correct build. There's no one way to build a weapon. Everyone has different needs and wants inside their weapon builds and character builds and everything like that. I always want you to go in with that mindset of just catering to your needs. What do you like and what do you want from the weapon? Do you think the weapon does enough damage? Do you not think it doesn't do enough damage? Right? We can talk about things later as we get more advanced as to how would it even improve these numbers further and what I would replace these mods with give or take mods. But as of right now, again, this is a very grounded, basic video. So don't worry about the purple modules. Don't worry about none of that unless you have them. I want you to like do your own like look at it and decide for yourself what you want, right? You can always ask me questions over on twitch.tv/renderp because over on Twitch, I'll be glad to answer your questions about a mod and what you can do and what you can add to counter mods and stuff like that before I get the video out talking about counter mods and trade-offs. But again, this is right now, it's just for a very early game, early players. So we got our damage on, we got our recoil covered, we got our fire rate up. Maybe my weapon reloads too slow. Maybe I want faster reload. So I'll look for my reload stuff and I'll type in reload up here. And I'll see, okay, I got recycling genius. Awesome. I'm going to put this on. Bam! Now I have better reload time. So the quality of life of this gun is overall better. And again, this is also kind of like an indirect up to DPS in a sense, because the faster I reload, the less time it is that I'm not doing damage, right? So I'm actually increasing the amount of time I'm doing damage. So this is technically like an indirect way to buff your damage output, because the less time you're spending reloading, the more time you're spending shooting something, the more damage that you're doing. So that's just another mindset to have, right? So even though this number isn't actually increasing, don't worry, technically you are going to be doing more damage, right? So keep that in mind as well. So backing out of here, I think that's everything that we needed to cover for the most part in how you should be gauging your builds, looking at your builds, and doing a give and takes for weapons and characters. This isn't perfect, but remember, your modules are also going to affect your components. So again, just a quick recap. If you are struggling with survivability inside the First Ascendant and you're dying early game, you're getting one-tapped constantly, I would look at your components first. I know some people are just throwing whatever components they find on. They don't really think about it too much. Don't worry about set bonuses or anything like that. Just look for specifically the number that's going to protect you and increase your survivability. So if your character scales high with HP, I would look for HP, put that in there. If your character scales high with defense, I'll throw that in there. But I wouldn't throw all my eggs in one basket. Because one thing that's very important to know is the diminishing returns. And what I mean by diminishing returns is that the more you keep adding more of one thing, the less of an increase you're going to get. So instead of slowly increasing one aspect of a character, increase more aspects of them, right? Where you can get bigger returns to have more survivability and more damage, which is why we prioritize adding more attack mods of different types. So like instead of me just saying, okay, just skill power, right? I have fusion skill power modifier because this is another thing being added to the equation. Because sure, if Nexon allowed me to, and I was only adding skill power, right? It gets to a point where I'm not actually getting a bigger boost, because it's just like imagine an equation that's like 2 + 2 + 2. You know what I mean? Versus an equation that's like 2 + 2 + 2 times 2. That equation is longer, meaning that number is going to be bigger, right? We're adding something to the equation that's going to multiply our damage and our survivability. So don't just all stockpile on defense, don't all stockpile on HP. Separate it with your components and then choose which one you think you need more of or which one you'd like to increase further. So that's how you should think about it. So if you have a lot of defense, I'll look at this and I'm like 16,000 defense. There's no way enemies are doing 16,000 damage. I don't need that much. So now I'm going to prioritize my HP, right? And then I'll make sure the rest of my components are giving me HP and HP and stuff like that. And then if the number is still kind of small and I'd like to increase it further, that's when I'll come to my module and I'll look at my module and I'll say to myself, okay, I'm now going to use my increased HP. Now I'm going to use my increased defense just to get those numbers slightly higher because they're kind of low. That's how you go about thinking about it. I hope that explains everything, and I hope this helps. If this video helped you better understand how to go about building your character and how you should be looking at your character, please leave a comment, like the video, subscribe to my channel, and follow me over on Twitch. If you have any questions, you can always stop by my channel and ask me live over on Twitch. I'm there almost every day. I'm usually streaming pretty much all day, especially grinding the First Ascendant. Thank you for watching this video if you made it this far. I really appreciate you giving me your time. I understand that people have busy lives and stuff like that, and I also probably slowing down your grind, but I really hope this helps. If there's anything that I missed, you can also ask it in the comment section below. I'll try my best to get back to you guys. I've just been grinding like hardcore and trying to get as much as possible done. So thank you again for everything. I appreciate you. I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace.